Hello, Leilani. We're going to take a look at your work that you've posted for the course. Since yours was one of the works that kind of got corrupted, we'll take a look at all three of your postings in this video. So it will be maybe a little bit longer, 15, 20 minutes or so. So feel free to stop in the middle of it. But let's go ahead and jump right in. Take a look at your pieces here. Let's see, where are we? Here we are. All right, I have your emphasis all queued up here. And so what I do first is I kind of do an overview. I look at what it is that that you've put together here, whether you followed the parameters of the project first. You know, following the instructions it sounds like it would be a no-brainer, and it usually is, but sometimes students have a hard time with figuring out just, you know, what they're supposed to do or what they're trying to do. It's an important thing to be able to have a set of instructions and be able to work those out. Also, to be able to be creative within a set of parameters is an important thing. Creativity is not just something that we do when there are no rules or when there are no when there is no structure. Creativity really happens when you do have a framework, and then inside that, you sort of explore all the possibilities. So this emphasis project was really about, first of all, exploring a point of view. I want to see where all the students are in terms of how they go about exploring spaces, what it is that they are interested in looking at, their experience level with photography, but then also giving you these visual prompts as you move closer and closer to the objects. What that's doing is it's allowing you to sort of emphasize a little bit. It's sort of making these distances less arbitrary. It's making it so that you have something to focus on. It also tells me, of course, whether you have addressed these at all within your studies. Whether you have thought about line or shape or color, whether you've had any experience with studying those basic fundamental elements of composition. So taking a look at what you have here, this is kind of interesting. You're doing almost this voyeuristic start off with the image. It's a little bit unbalanced. When I say unbalanced, I just mean that we got quite a bit of heaviness right here, and it kind of doesn't quite balance off. I think it's a really good attempt. I think it's a really good idea what you're doing here. Didn't quite pull it off. I think if we had something with more contrast over here that would have more strength visually, it would overcome how heavy this is. It's such a heavy element right there on the edge. But I think it's great that you're experimenting with that. I would always suggest that you do that. So then you're coming in just a little bit more, and you got the portrait of a structure. I like that you kind of squared it up a little bit. You might have even tried to square it up even more. It may have been impossible based on where you were, but I like that you kind of tried to come in a little bit closer. We're a little bit underexposed here, meaning it's a little bit dark, the image. So it's maybe a slightly different time of day would have worked better. You're continuing to come closer. Now here's our first visual prompt, which was line. And clearly you found a line. Now line doesn't necessarily mean just, you know, a line. Line can mean a sort of direction. Line can mean movement, as we're exploring that right now. Also, you've got this very nice lighting. It's probably just a little bit too late in the day for you to be working on just at this moment, because it seems like it's right behind the house and you're in almost full shadow back there, which is not really helping you, especially with some detail underneath the house here. Continuing to go forward, now we're looking at some of the other elements. You've got shape, you've got plenty of that to work with. Now, when we say shape, what I would suggest is looking at breaking down the elements just purely by shape, not necessarily needing to see the structure anymore. Because when we say we want to emphasize shape, we could be starting to zoom in or trying to get into a position where we can crop off or not see things like this edge and just be cropping somewhere right in here so that we're identifying this shape and maybe like this shape and things like that. That's what we mean about shape, trying to use the composition, use the edges of the composition to identify and break down those things. That would be where I would go. Now, color. Color, I'm not exactly sure what you were working with here with color. I guess brown. It's a little bit ambiguous to me what color you were going with. I suppose there wasn't a whole lot of color out there for you to work with. It's an interesting image, though. I like what you did here with the symmetry and the alternating rhythm of the posts. Now we get into light. Where there you've got the spot of color. This might have been a better subject to be exploring with the color because you have this pop of yellow next to all of the other. So this might have been a better candidate for the color portion of it. This is maybe, I think, one of your strongest images in terms of vision. This is shadow, and I think you really hit it on this one. This one's a beautiful, beautiful photograph because you're not only capturing the building, you've got this basic area of the building, and then you've got this to counterbalance it. This is what I was talking about in the first image, where you had the tree on the side there, and it was kind of weighted too much. This would have done the same thing. This would have been too heavy over here had you not had something over on this side running off like you have here to counterbalance it. That's what I mean about the counterbalance. You were able to have this over here, but then you had this over here to counterbalance it. So composition-wise, it's there. This is also what I was talking about when I was saying to allow things to run off the page to create shape. Notice how this starts to become just a shape rather than identifying itself as a building. Notice also how the blue of the sky almost starts to become a shape. So that is what happens when we start to focus on shape. Not only that, lost it there. Not only that, but you have this wonderful sort of touching of light here, 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 just kind of all along the edge there, which is very unique. It's a point of view, yet at the same time, we have these sort of shadows that still have some detail in it. It's just a really excellent photograph. I say that 1 out of every 10 images is a good thing. That's hitting it pretty well. I don't know how many images that you got, but this one is definitely a strong image when it comes to shadow, strong image, excellently composed image, all of those things. I hope most of it or all of it was absolutely deliberate. If it was by accident or if it was just intuitive, that's nice too. But I want to point that out so that you can look at this image and continue to make more images like this one. And so now we're moving into, here we have the texture. And texture is really about detail. Texture can be just almost like a pattern in a way, but I think you did all right with this one. The vertical maybe isn't doing as much for you. I think we probably could have gone with more of a horizontal and cropped it here and here. I like what you're doing though with allowing the objects to go off of the page here or off of the picture frame, because it does help break it down once again in terms of shape. This becomes a shape. This becomes a shape. Even this becomes a shape, which is very good, very good. As you see it, this is kind of interesting and quirky, and I'm not even sure what I'm looking at here, but what is it that I'm looking at here? Oh, interesting. At any rate, you've got a progressive rhythm going on here, which we did look at before, which we will be looking at later. And you have, again, you have these things on the side. You've been pretty good all along with allowing objects to run off of the edge of the picture frame. And that is an important thing. That's something that not a lot of photographers, when they start off, do. They tend to plunk things right in the middle and they don't engage the edges of the picture plane. You're doing it right off the bat, and I think that's a good thing. So let's move into your rule of thirds and see where we are there. I see we have another snowy scene here. Grab a little bit of sip here, keep my voice going. So rule of thirds, structural, a framework that we can use to create a sort of a sense of balance, but without sort of pinpointing it to any one particular area. It kind of creates this sort of teetering rather than having everything sort of floating toward the middle. It also helps students who perhaps aren't addressing the edges of the picture plane kind of focus a little bit more outward toward everything else. Here, you have a pretty good grasp of it here where you have this going here. This horizon is a little bit too much in the center. This horizon is probably the one that we want to emphasize a little bit more. I would suggest don't do that. The sun itself is not something you really want to point your camera at. I would just discourage you from doing that. This is a much better way to address having the sun where it's just kind of behind it. Not to mention it, you're able to take advantage of the really wonderful things that it does light-wise. Here, all you're getting is this like strange blast of light, and all it is it's like looking at the sun. But this gives you all this subtlety that you otherwise would be missing. This is kind of an epic, an epic shot. This is what most people would consider when they think about Colorado. Yeah, you've got the horizon line there where the rule of thirds would be. We don't have a whole lot of vertical going on here. You don't always have to have a dominant vertical going on when you're using the rule of thirds. However, if we're using the rule of thirds and we're trying to explore it, it's a good idea to have an element like that. This is kind of pushing it a little bit. You got the vertical here now, but then our horizon wound up right in the middle there. Again, you're very good at kind of including things all the way around the picture frame. I'm really interested in seeing more of that from you because that's a very good thing. It's a natural thing you're doing where you're placing things here and you're placing things here. Here again, we're a little bit centralized. We've kind of got a little bit of the emphasis down in here, but I think you're on the right track here. You're about where you need to be with the rule of thirds. It's not an easy, as easy as it might seem. We think about it as a structure, and you just plunk things here or plunk things there, but in practice, it can be a little bit. It can be a little bit clumsy at first until you've been using it for some time and you're just accustomed to kind of shifting things down or shifting things up and moving that little thing over to here. And when you can get it, it's almost like, think of it almost like the ability to tune your instrument, right? You can kind of pluck the guitar and go, it's not quite there, and you can tune it. The rule of thirds kind of helps you do that just a little bit. You don't want to overdo it, of course, because then all your images look the same. This is almost there. You've got this a little bit more centralized. I think if we were over just a little bit, possibly right here with this over here, you would have been right on. You've got your horizon a little bit in a better spot here, a bit higher here. That's definitely good. Sometimes when you're working with this rule of thirds, you'll focus more on the horizontal horizon and you kind of forget about the vertical one, or you focus more on the vertical one and forget about the horizontal one. Really, to use this principle, you really want to be using both of them at the same time. And I guess that's where it kind of becomes a little bit more difficult to have. Here, you've got it pretty good. You got the emphasis is going on right here. And you didn't exactly make a line, but that's cool. You don't always have to have that. But you got the emphasis going on right here. And then you got the horizontal, which is happening right here. And look at where it is. It's, again, in the middle. So it's a challenge. It definitely is a challenge when we're looking to find where that rule of thirds is. Here, the rule of thirds line is in pretty good shape. It's a little bit high, but it's pretty good. You still don't get the feeling that it's in the center. This, again, is a little bit in the center. This one, again, a little bit in the center here. You notice how this horizon is feeling more like it's in the middle than it would be up or down. Again, the sun, let's avoid that. You're not the only one who's been making images and you're pointing your camera at the sun, but I would just say, don't do that. Also, what we're having here, I'm noticing here is a couple of different frames on your pictures. So for instance, here we have a what's like a 16:9, kind of a wide format. Here you have more of a 4:3, which is more of like a square, like old style TV kind of situation. Then you have this vertical, which is the 4:3 sort of format. So it looks like for the most part, you got 4:3 going on, this shape, and then you just randomly have this one, which is the 16:9, more like the widescreen. Try to stay consistent. Try to stay consistent. You don't want to have just randomly one that's like off there on that. It just breaks it up. It makes it feel like it's sort of scattershot. If the shapes of a body of work, of a grouping of work, are all different. I do like that you're shooting at different times of day. That's excellent. A lot of students are not doing that, and you seem to be doing that. So that's good. Let's take a look at your rhythm now. Did I pass it? There it is. All right, here's where we're going to be using repetition to create a variety of different rhythmic energy within the composition, alternating back, forth, progressive, where we're moving the viewer's eye in a direction, one direction, like this way, that way. Usually it's forward or backward, or slightly forward or backward within the composition. A good rule of thumb to think about when you're thinking about the difference between alternating rhythm and progressive rhythm. Alternating rhythm usually will almost always tend to be flat. It'll tend to be where you're squaring things up and creating something that feels like you're comparing, or feels like you're flattening into creating a two-dimensional surface like this, and then you're doing this comparison like that. Progressive just takes that same idea and turns it like this. So you have this and then this back here, kind of creates that stepping where you're going back into space. So that's really the difference. Now, undulating is where it kind of goes in one direction and then another direction and then another direction. That kind of gives you this sort of flowing like this. That's the other one. So alternating rhythm, you've got this here. That is a good establishing one. I would have maybe come down just a little bit, suggested coming down a little bit to square those beams up. You did it very nicely here. This is an excellent example of an alternating rhythm because you've got the two groupings here. They're not even identical. You got the one type of swing and you got the other type of swing, but they're both swings, and you split it up and presented it as this alternating rhythm back and forth. This is a really good photograph. Once again, this is an excellent photograph. Organizationally, light-wise, the light is just fantastic in this image. This is what we're looking for with photography. This is a photograph, not just a picture. Excellent, excellent, excellent image here. Here we're doing, yeah, I mean, I can see here, but I don't know if this is the best example of the alternating rhythm. It's more like what you would call a radial rhythm. And that is where things are kind of coming from the center out. And it's clear because you've got this circle and things are kind of progressing outward from it. It's not progressive really because it doesn't pull you in one direction or another. It's not really alternating either because it's not creating a comparative. It's more or less coming from the center because you've got that bullseye thing set in the middle and coming out, which is a different type of rhythm that we're not really exploring here. This is going to be progressive, actually, because you have the 2 footsteps and then the 2 footsteps. Do you see how they go backward in the space? So those 2 footsteps are the first progression, and then the next 2 footsteps are the second progression. So you're progressing in a direction. That means progressive. So that's going to be a progressive. Now, if you were on top of it, if you're shooting down on it and you had the foot, and then you had another groups of foot, like 2 feet, and then another 2 feet like that, that would be alternating rhythm. It's really just a matter of where you're positioning yourself that can create either one. And you're either going to create movement like what you're doing here with progressive, or you're going to create this comparative, which is what alternating does. So this is progressive rhythm, not alternating. Here, good job with alternating. Now you're getting into progressive. That's good. This is good. You're working with the progressive rhythm. It's not as straightforward. This is good progressive rhythm, moving us through here. This is also getting us into some of the leading lines that you guys are working on now with the project. Whoop. Let me kind of come back here. I'll pull out again. Okay, so now we're getting kind of almost back into this sort of alternating rhythm, even though it's kind of going up like this. We're almost a little bit too flat, and what we're getting is this kind of back forth instead of really focusing on the idea that these silver things are different. What it is space bar, space bar, space bar, space bar, space bar, space bar, space bar. This is a language, and you'll with time and practice and just experience, you're going to start to identify these things really quickly. I mean, when I'm looking at this stuff, I can pull it out really, really quickly, only because I've been looking at this stuff for a long time. And so you'll be able to do that too. You're going to be able to look at stuff like this and go, oh, that's clearly alternating rhythm, or that's clearly this kind of, I'll use this kind of strategy to communicate a particular thing. It's quite extraordinary what you're going to be capable of doing once you start to use all of these things in combination. That's a good one for progressive because you got swing, swing, swing. It's really simple. We're just studying this just to kind of get a good idea that you understand the concepts of what we're doing. Undulating rhythm, that's where we want to kind of move in one direction and then move in another direction. Think of it more like organic progressive, sorry, kind of like moving like this. It's open to more of an interpretive exploration. And yeah, I would say this is kind of getting there. You kind of have this kind of flowing here and this flowing there. It's not quite as straightforward as maybe some of the other ones. Goodness, what's going on with my mouse here? I must be tapping the side there. This is kind of an interesting one where you kind of have angles and diagonals kind of moving back and forth. I think that's a good one. It's creating this sort of flow that's moving back and forth, and that's definitely a rhythm because you got the repetition of the boards. They're all going in different directions. It's a very good example of that. This again, because of the use of light, I really admire how you're using light here. In several of your images, I'm seeing that you're noticing and using quality of light, shadow, all of those things to your advantage. You're using them as an element of composition and design. This is excellent. We have just a little bit down here that if we didn't have it cropping it off or moving your camera up a little bit, you probably didn't even see it in your viewfinder because viewfinders don't always show you absolutely everything you're about to take a picture of. But it's a very interesting way of looking at things. And Yeah, looking at light in this way is always going to be a good idea. Here you've done a good job of this skewed perspective, the skewed angle, because this is way off, right? You've got the horizon just totally off, but this strength right here, you've got this strength that's going in this direction, and you've got such a strong line here, and this strong line there, that it just feels okay. We're not paying as much attention back here that this is so off. So you managed to be able to bring some balance to what otherwise is going to be an image that would totally look lopsided or disorienting. And you've managed to use the rhythm to kind of pull it back into something that feels a little bit more balanced. So a very good job on a lot of these things. I'd say you're at, or even a little bit above where you should be. Your sensitivity to quality of light is excellent. You're using lots of different lighting scenarios, shooting at different times of day. Sometimes it's getting you in a little bit of trouble because the light gets dark on you. And sometimes it's like where it's really giving you an advantage because the images look fantastic. You keep exploring compositional strategies. When you're using the elements that run off the page from one area to the other area, make sure that you're trying to make them feel a little bit more balanced. When you incorporate the rule of thirds, don't just pay attention to one of the line works, or the horizontal wants to be in one spot and the verticals want to be in that other spot. When you want to use that structure, it's important that we're able to do that. So I'm very happy with what I'm seeing. I look forward to seeing a lot more of your photography, and we will catch up in class. All right, bye now.